Hi everybody, it's Ardeshir Radpour, TK 42128 from the 501st Legion, Southern California Garrison, Los Angeles Squad. So I want to go over in detail the differences in the blasters that you see here and what's going on, because I've had a bunch of questions about it. I can give you as much information as I have from the ones I've seen and held and so forth. There's a lot of debate going on with this stuff, and so I'm going to try to clear that up as much as I can. So let's start with the holsters first, because I like to get this out of the way. So this is a holster that is made by Dan in Germany. It's all aluminum. It's painted. It's 3 layers of aluminum, and then there's the resin piece, and then all the screws and hardware that go into it. This is an exquisite piece of work. I love this thing. So I got quite a few of them for every one of my suits. As you can see, it's pretty much an identical copy of what comes with the Denuo Novo kit, except this is a resin version, and it's beautiful. It looks great. You just can't really actually holster a weapon into it because it doesn't have the groove cut in there. And if it did, it would make it too weak anyway. So if you're not planning on holstering one of your blasters in it, then it's not a big deal. This is a beautiful piece. I'll probably actually use it on one of the armors. So, you know, I think it's really well done. It's a perfect holster. This is an exact replica of it with the metal version that you can actually holster your blasters with. And so let's talk about the blasters that get holstered into that, okay? So I'm gonna start with the SE44C. So that SE44C is this one right here. So I'm really happy with the way this blaster came out. There's one tiny little modification I made in it, just my preference, the way that I want to do it. I saw another blaster that a friend of mine made. Is stunning, absolute stunning blaster. And he did an interesting way of turning the light on and off on it that I thought was pretty darn spectacular. I didn't go down that route. It was complicated. He might be a little bit more advanced than I am in that area, but at the same time, I just didn't want any hassles with this, and I'll explain that. So this blaster is basically built on an actual Glock. So the pistol that you see here and that runs through here is an actual Glock that's in there. Mine is not a Glock, of course. It's a resin printed blaster. I really wanted a super high-end looking blaster, super smooth, glossy, you know, finish. The black, of course, is matte, but the white is glossy. What I thought was interesting in the way that he did it is that when you remove the magazine out of it, it's off. When you plug the magazine in, the light comes on. And a lot of people have a working trigger on theirs. Right here, you can see it. Mine doesn't. Mine is fixed. The reason is if I'm ever trooping someplace at a con or something like that, I don't even want them to think that I'm hiding a potential weapon or anything like that. So I took that functionality out. Other than that, this is an exact copy of what you would see on screen. So there's a couple of neat little things that I did with regards to this. There's wiring in there for the light. And so let's get to the light real quick. There is a round disc light button that goes underneath the pistol here. I didn't put that in there. And what I did was I drilled out a little spot and put in just a regular rectangular switch in there with a round button. With that round button sticking down, it actually almost looks exactly like that. So all I need to do is whenever I want, I just click, turn it on, click, and I turn it off. And if I want to replace the battery, I unscrew these batteries, pull out this compartment, the battery compartment is in there, replace the battery and put it back in there. The battery on this thing is a little tiny, it's a little tiny 9-volt. It's not a double prong, but it's a little tiny one. And I left the blaster on with one battery, and I think it was on for 7 days. So there was no issues on how long it was going to last. Let's just go over the details on this blaster. It was done for me by a friend of mine at 3D Print Merchant. It's resin printed, a lot less work. You still have to do a little bit of work to get some lines removed out of it. but I painted it in parts, and that's why you get such a clean, really nice clean finish look to it. All the black is matte black. I used Behr matte black paint. I'll never use another spray paint again. It's hands down the best. I can spray it into a little container and then pour that into an airbrush if I want, and airbrush details in there, or I can just spray it out of the can. So all the black is matte, and it is a matte black Behr paint, okay? The white is the gloss white Behr paint, and that's what I used to paint the white on some of the other armor parts that I wanted. For example, like the Executioner chest, I wanted it a little bit white, so whiter than it was, and so to match the rest of the armor, and that was this white paint here. It's a perfect match for it. And once the paint, it doesn't drip. It's incredible. I have had one incident when there was a tiny little bit of a drip line, and I let it sit for a second, and I sprayed over it again, and it fused it all out. It's beautiful. So I highly recommend you guys using the Behr paints, especially for us. Any one of us that have painted anything, and we know how many times you get that little crackling, that bubbling. We have to sand, remove, do all that nonsense. It just drives me crazy. All the screws are actual screws. These are the locking hex screws. So you have M4s and M3s, and the bracket that's here, it's a metal, it's an aluminum looking bracket on the other ones. I painted mine a little bit darker color. I just thought it looked better. You never see it. It doesn't matter when it's holstered in, you can't see it. So for me, I just like the look of it. So I just did that. And as far as the screws go, they just pop into the holster, and then it clicks to the side, and then it's locked in there. So to remove it, you just pop it up and it comes out. Okay, so this is the SE44C. Again, beautiful job by a 3D print merchant. I loved it. The details on it are pretty darn spectacular. When you see this thing in person, you're pretty blown away how nice and detailed the print quality is. And then once you get to painting it, it's just a phenomenal piece of work when it comes out. Okay, so I put the little screw in at the top. Most people don't put in. There's the two black screws here, but the rest of them are all natural color screws. Okay, so that's the SE44C. I'm going to put that away for now, and then we're going to get to the F11. So the F11 is the standard sidearm that you see with the First Order. This one was done for me. Well, the print was done for me by Brandfer. I don't think he does them anymore, which is a shame because it was a quite nice print. But again, you can get it from 3D Print Merchant. I believe the files are the same files. I love this blaster. This came out better than I'd hoped. So you know, it's one of my favorite pieces. So let's talk about some of the differences that you'll see in this blaster. You'll see another one here. This one is a rubber blaster. So I just brought it for you guys to see. You can paint the rubber blaster to look pretty darn good. Again, it's painted with a Behr paint. And so this is a fully rubber blaster. And since I didn't really want to get into the drillings of a lot of the stuff that goes on, we'll get into it with the other blaster. Because it's rubber, this doesn't come down, as well as there's just no way to wire the interior of this unless you really want to get into it. So you could take a 2032 battery case, you can order it. I just put it on the bottom of this counter, and so when I move the switch, it allows me to turn the lights on, and you can see that. And that's all you really need for trooping with this. I never use that front light, don't care about it, don't care for it. So I just wanted to show you guys that the rubber blasters can look like the other ones. I'll go into the details that you'll see, like the Picatinny rail on this particular blaster. So let's talk about this blaster. So this blaster is approved to Centurion level. So there's a couple of little things that I just want to point out. There is a Picatinny rail here for a light mount. Why, when you have a light, I don't know. This one is drilled out so that I have a front light that works with a very powerful LED light there, as well as LEDs that are in here that work. So this whole thing is wired through. There's a switch that I put here and a switch that I put here. And then I can remove this to change the battery. Again, it's the same, that little tiny 9-volt thing. It's in here, I can remove it, and with magnet it pops on. And then if I want, I just turn, let me show you, with this little switch here, I can feel it through my gloves and stuff. I can just turn the lights on and it works. And while the unit is on, so this is my power master switch, I can actually hit this one, turn this light on and off, and then I'm good to go. Now, if I leave this light on by accident and turn the master unit off, the whole thing goes off, turn it on. So that's what the deal is with this blaster. So with a light in it. I don't have electronics running through it. It doesn't pew pew or do any of that stuff. But let's go over some of the interesting little details. This is called a Force Awakens F11. I don't agree with that at all. I'm in a discussion with FISD about this. They're great at FISD. Love Andrew at FISD. I think he's doing a phenomenal job, and I'll vote for him forever as long as he wants to stay there. But there's some discussions with some of the other guys. In Last Jedi and Rise of Skywalker, they made some changes to the blasters. This is not a triangular cut. It's round. There's a hole that's drilled in the top here. And then these rings, there's a huge discussion going on about that. My opinion, that's ridiculous and it's nonsense. They had X amount of blasters. They needed to make a new group of blasters. So they made a new group of blasters, and a whole group of guys were carrying these blasters and the other ones. So let's just say, hypothetically, for numbers, they had 25, they needed another 25. The new 25 were made with some of these other changes that were made into it. Like, for example, charging handle is missing. Who cares? There's 25 of these being carried around and 25 of the other ones. It doesn't mean that this doesn't apply to Last Jedi or Rise of Skywalker. So if any of you guys have this blaster, push it. Push to make sure that this is approvable all the way to Centurion level. This is a Centurion level approved blaster. Then the discussion became these rings. As you can see, all the rings are here. Here is white with a square white ring. Here is silver with the square white ring, silver with the black ring, and then there's silver with no ring. And mine has the silver with the little ring. That's the one I like. That's the one I'm going to keep. And it's just the way it's going to stay for me, and I'm going to fight for that. It's stupid. Why would a guy like me who takes so many photos and does so many things put his foot down on the ground on this? Because I just feel like at some point it's just not about what I get to pick or you get to pick that decides what everyone else has to. It's screen accurate. It's there. It's not an anomaly. There are major characters carrying this blaster, talking throughout the whole thing. And they're going to say that this one's acceptable and that one's not acceptable. This is my Rise of Skywalker, Last Jedi, and Force Awakens blaster, and that's how I'm going to stay with it. So that's the ring setup I went with. You guys can see the other ring setups. For you guys, I recommend doing the white with the white. You can't go wrong with it. It'll save you that argument. But I like that look. That's what I wanted to stay with, and I validated it with major characters that are speaking in it. And I said, that's what I'm going to stick with. So this is the F11, and it is a couple of things. Let's just go through this. Also, the forward stock works. I've got a little tiny magnet in there. When it comes up, it grabs it. The forward stock has this grippy material. Same thing with the pistol side of it. So that's mandatory. It has to have that texture. I actually went with the grippy material on it. And then the Picatinny rail, it's sometimes set here, sometimes set more in the middle. I preferred it more forward. The one that I saw was a little bit more forward. I like that. A lot of people have been asking me about the silver. The silver paints didn't work for me. And I didn't like the matte look. Some of them I saw were really shiny. Believe it or not, you can just buy a silver paint pen. An actual paint, not like something that you buy at like Joann's, but there's an actual silver paint pen that you can get on Amazon. You just got to let it dry for about a week before you touch it. But it comes on and it just adds a completely different, spectacular look to it. So there's the F11. Now we're going to move on to the next one. The heavy gun. So Yeah, let's talk about that one for a second. So, unlike popular belief, to just add a buttstock to this, that's not the case with this. The F11 is 20% smaller than the heavy gun. I know a lot of people cheat and add the buttstock to it. I wish I could have done that as well. I almost wanted to do that, but unfortunately it's not accurate. The F11 heavy blaster, F11D, is it's 20% larger, and as you can see, it's quite a chunk of weaponry. So get this out of the way so that you guys can see that. It's quite a chunk of weaponry. Again, I had this printed for me from a 3D print merchant. All the paint is bare, so bare matte black, bare gloss white. It comes with stickers. The stickers didn't work well for me, so I printed my own. So these two little stickers that are on the front here, on the back side, there's this one here, there's a little tiny one that's here, and then of course these ones that are here. So I had a friend of mine print these up for me on a little vinyl cutter. This was I should say, one hell of a build. I enjoyed building it, but it was a lot of work because there's a lot of pieces. The good thing about it is the thing comes completely apart, and there's very few pieces that you need to glue. I did glue some pieces together, but I can take this whole thing apart via the screws. So all these little screws that you see here enable me to take this whole blaster apart. I can take the buttstock off, everything. So what I did with this one, again, is I went with this piece is underneath, is two screws. I unscrew it, pop this out. My battery is in here. Again, it's that little tiny 9-volt thing that goes in. I gotta remember the battery, but it's a little tiny round battery. It looks like a small, like maybe half of a AA. Anyways, it fit in there really nice. But I found these flat LEDs. You can find them on Amazon. They're just little square flat LED plates, which I wish I would have known on these other blasters. They're exceptionally bright. So what I did was I took a red piece of plexiglass and I sanded down the backside to mat it down so that it's not clear. I mounted them inside these two areas and was able to get that red, solid, diffused look. And then a lot of people take this piece, you can unscrew, you take it out. So a lot of people take this out on their blasters, they twist that to get the light to come on, and they slide that whole thing back in. Pain in the neck. I dremeled out this silver piece, and I found an LED. It's an LED for a car, like you can put them on the outsides of cars and stuff like that. I put a nice little LED plate in there, and then I wired it through the whole thing. So once again, I ran my wire up, and I have a button right here. So for me, it works as if it's in a tactical situation. I can just use my thumb to turn that on. Foregrip works. And then I wanted to do something a little bit different with the way that this one turns on. So instead of putting the button back here, I put the button behind my trigger. So if I pull my trigger, I can turn the light on. Pull my trigger, I can turn the light off. It just makes it easier for me if I'm at a troop, if I want to save some battery or turn it on or off. Once the unit is on, I can hit the front and I can get the light to turn on as well. If I turn the whole unit off via the trigger, everything comes off, comes back on, and I have that. I put a little a reticle in there, put a lens across the top of it, and then the same thing with the lens here. The lens here is slightly smoked out because I didn't really want to look in there and see something hollow, so it kind of looks like it's maybe a little bit of a reflection or something like that. But that's about it. So now, one thing about this is, for whatever reason, this rear sight they went white with. And on the heavy weapons blasters, some of them have the Picatinny rail that they put on it, like Last Jedi, Rise of Skywalker, they had the Picatinny rail on it. I haven't decided yet whether I'm going to put the Picatinny rail on it or not. It's real easy. I have a little, it's like a little piece of like silicone. It's sticky, so you can wall mount things. I put it on the back of the Picatinny rail so I can literally pop it off of that and put it on here if I want. I don't really understand what the point of the Picatinny rail is, or mounting a light. I've seen some mounted lights on some of the blasters when it already has a front light. So for my use, this is the way that I prefer. So this is the F11D, the heavy blaster. I hope this helps you guys out on some of your blaster decisions, what you're going to do, what you're not going to do. If you're going to do a Last Jedi or a Rise of Skywalker version, you know, you guys know the differences are in the armor, the sharper nose, the thermal detonator, forearms, and all that other stuff. You're going to have to make your own personal decision. Maybe get a round plate, you know, made, a rear sight made, and make that all white, and add that in. Drill the holes in the top of the blaster, remove your charging handle. I don't necessarily agree in that, and I won't do that. I think it's ridiculous to create a standard for a blaster that existed across all 3 series to make that. So make your choices on that, and that's it. One more thing. For the light on the SE44C, I had to drill very carefully into this bar and make a drill all the way down to the center and then out the back. And I slid up an LED through here, and then I took the same technique. I took a piece of red plexiglass, sanded the back to make it matte, and I mounted it on here, and that's how I get that diffused LED look on it, or else it's too crystal clear that it pops up. So I hope you guys find this video a little bit helpful. If you have any questions, just go ahead and reach out to me. The blaster issue regarding these rings and all that nonsense is still going on. In my opinion, it's a moot point. So enjoy your build. All right, guys. Ardeshir Radpour, TK42128 from the Southern California Garrison Los Angeles Squad. Have fun trooping. Get ready.